In October last year, our company, a company, sorry, not our company, a company, everything is scrubbed from real data. A company had a production incident where all of our products were unavailable in Italian market. I mean, it only lasted for, what, 5 hours? It generated about 8 million euros of turnover loss in that 5 hours only. We have a lot of customers. And the decision by the company was, because of this incident, 2 juniors need to be fired. And you're laughing. I understand. It sounds a bad thing. It actually is worse, because a few other people left from that team because of they felt that this was not justified behavior. So we lost almost a full team of experienced people who know our product. We lost the training we put into them, and we have to spend more money and effort in recruiting new people, and other teams have to pick up the slack because the job needs to continue. My name is Kristjan, as said, and I'm here to talk about decisions. Good decisions. First of all, we'll come back to that story obviously later, but first of all, my road to management, as we said, as I'm here to defend, because it's easy to talk about stupid decisions that management does. We see that all the time, from government to companies to CEOs, price gauging and everything. But occasionally they make decisions that actually maybe weren't that stupid. But we'll get to that. My road to management started actually when I started in testing, which was back in a company called Bang & Olufsen back then. I was a embedded C developer. We were in a meeting discussing, well, testing of our project, and we had problems because the one guy in that company who knew about testing was busy with other projects. So I was like, yeah, give me a raise, I'll test it for you. Everybody laughed, we went, moved on, we figured out that one. Half an hour after the meeting, my manager comes in and asks, could you come to see the boss? I was like, fuck, can I say that? I was like, damn, that was a bad joke, I guess. I'm gonna get now told off about it. Luckily, they offered me the raise and told me, hey, go do testing. So I ended up doing testing and hiring testing and managing that. And one of the mistakes that a new manager always does is hiring mistakes. I had a role that required talking to third parties, having a good interaction with them, because we needed them to test our products and talk to us what they require, and they weren't really interested, so we needed to persuade them. So I was looking for a specific profile who knows a little bit about technical stuff, understands what we're doing, what we want to do, but also is talkative. A normal engineer or a developer, especially in Estonia, doesn't really fit the bill, because we'd rather hide under the table than pick up the phone. So I was, spent some time, and I found a guy who advertised himself as the sidekick for a hero. I'll do a lot of things to help you guys do the right things, and I'll talk a lot. Cool, I did that. I talked to him, it seemed like a good guy, and he did actually perform really well. He built relationships, he got information out of US company certification systems where, couldn't have been bought for money. I don't know how he did that, but he managed to build that. The problem was obviously that he was also talking with everybody. And he didn't discriminate. If he had something to say or ask, he just called them up, including C-level members of a big company. And they were obviously polite and talked to them for a bit. And soon they told me that this guy is disrupting business. Could you, deal with him? Obviously we had chat, multiple ones. He was still on probation this time. He hasn't even finished it. And I was like, this isn't, it's not good. Could you, rein your horses in a bit? And he said, yes. Obviously, as it's a bad decision, we learned that he didn't. We ended that probation unsuccessfully. It happens. And it's fine. That's what probation is for. unfortunately, this guy went to a, what's the English word for it? A wrongful dismissal committee and said, I think I've been, made a bad thing because I did what was asked from me. So a bit of a legal battle ensued, and I spent a lot of energy getting facts and understanding what was going on and so on and so forth. And in the end, the committee, which is composed of like 3 75-year-old ladies who are very nice but doesn't really know much about technology development, they were listening, looking at the massive amount of data that needed to be done, and then said, this was probation end. What are you even talking about? There's no case here, get out. I had lost about, a lot of my nerves into that program as a new manager. It's hard to do that. But I got over that. I was like, okay, we need a good training program. We need to manage our people in a good way. Because previously, before I came a sort of a head for that department of testers, the idea of training new testers was we put them in a room with no windows for 2 weeks, give them the URL for all of the documentation that we have, and said, well, learn that. I thought maybe that's a bit harsh. So we did another thing. Obviously, we had a wonderful exercises. We tried things out. We talked with each other. We gave feedback. I mean, I might have gone a bit overboard. I hope nobody's here from from that time with me, so I apologize if I pestered you way too much about how exactly do you define quality. And that is not the right word for use that. We use exploratory testing is not a technique, it is an approach. Yes, a manual testing. Fine. But my problem at the time was that I was too good at it, looking back. Because I trained those guys to be very narrow specialists in that field that we were working with. So when that company went bankrupt, or basically the mother company just said that we can't pay you guys anymore because we haven't made profit in the last 8 years and we need to cut costs, we needed to find new jobs. But those guys were basically in a dead-end job because there's no other company doing similar kinds of testing that we had really trained for. And that was like, oh, bugger. I ruined the lives of 12 people that was working with me that then. We spent some effort to make sure that that goes well, and we did some cross-training, and those people are fine now. But still, I was not happy at the time. Although my idea originally was good. We should be trained. So that's how it goes. Another problem that managers have is they make promises. Promises that they maybe should not have done, especially if it involves salary increases, new projects, new technologies, getting rid of legacy. Yes. At the same time, obviously, as a manager, you want to do that. You want to move away from that. You want to create better life for your people so they can actually work with interesting things. But you're not the only ones making that decision. There is architects. There is the board. There is somebody, a product who needs this. There are some business people who still operate on this legacy product because it still makes money. So how do you navigate that? You have to find a way of saying that, okay, we have a plan. I know you're tired of this. I know you want to change. I understand you. I want to say that this is going to happen, but I know I can't promise this. But I'll tell you, most likely what's going to happen, we're going to get this project closed. We're going to get this new technology, and don't worry about it. In 2 months, you'll get the good news. Most likely, I'll do all I can. And quite often, obviously, that's not the truth, because it's not just my decision, right? But the person, what they hear is, this is going to happen. No matter how much I use safety language around it, it's still going to be, yeah, it's going to happen. I'm going to get a raise. And I'm going to get the 30% that the other company is offering me. They're going to give me the same amount. No. Most likely that's not. But my problem is, I was trying to be very gentle. I was trying to be soft and say, hey, this, we might be able to do that, because I want to keep these people with me. I want to have them working for me. And that is very hard to do. So I made promises I shouldn't have done. People stayed and were really angry, and they left afterwards as well. But that's something that happens to everybody, I think. I don't know, there are managers in the room. I think they have all been in that situation. And then is the fourth typical problem for a new manager: organizational change. I saw Kristjan sigh. Introducing organizational change is always difficult, because you can't please everybody. You'll please somebody and make other people worse. So you have to find a good way. So what I did, obviously, the idea behind it was great. Why to do the change? We'll figure that out. We talked about it. Seems good. It's a new change. It doesn't matter what exactly it was. Our preparation was good. We pulled in the right people. We pulled in architects. We pulled in, product designers, operational guys. We talked with a few select team members, see how is that going to fit together. We planned it out. We involved HR, because this change affected about 100 people across 4 locations. So there was quite a number of team changes, responsibility changes involved, and so on. So you need to plan this stuff out. And I did that effort. I put that in. I talked to all the right people. We did the mappings, and obviously the result was not good. People were angry and annoyed, and they were saying, well, this is a good idea, but maybe we should have done it the other way, because there were other options. We considered them. There were multiple other options. But when I presented it to everybody, I didn't touch upon those options, mainly because of time. I mean, you can't go, well, we had 17 ideas and we discarded all of them because these reasons, and it would have taken 3 days to talk about it. And at the same time, when you do an organizational change presentation, most people hearing that want to hear what's going to happen to me. Nothing else matters until you get to that part, what's going to happen to me. Then they hear that. If they're happy with everything. If they're not happy, everything sucks. And they haven't heard any of that talk because they were thinking about what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to me. And am I going to get a good project? So it's very, very hard to do that correctly, and I didn't. Afterwards, we went through talk with some of the people who were unhappy and did some changes. Because, our plan was so good that we had even prepared the union, because one of our locations was in Sweden, which has a very strong union. If you make changes to their projects or job descriptions, you have to have those things aligned as well. And because all of that took quite a long time, this preparation and planning, the news got out. There were rumors that something's going to change. People know there's a writing on the wall. You get the feeling that other people, there's going to be a change. And because I took so long to communicate this change, the rumors had sort of set that this is what's going to happen. So the expectations were also not controlled by me and were kind of wrong. And so we were not only making changes, but we were changes against the expectations that I didn't even know that existed. So I'm trying to explain that I did everything correct and everybody else was wrong. I'm defending the management. You see, blue collars. Obviously, not everything goes right, but those are the major things that feel. So in the end, I was said, this is another top-down management change. Nobody consults us. Nobody wants to hear what we think about it. Blah, blah, blah. Because even in some other cases, you talk to people, you explain things, and if it's not directly impacting their work right now, it's easy to forget it. So you have to keep on repeating it. The change model, the resistance phase, and backup phase and all that. So that's hard to do. This was briefly about things that I was more directly doing. I was defending myself as a manager. But as I moved on and I became the head of department, I started to see some of the changes or decisions that happened that I'm only part of, which is happening higher up, where I don't really always know what's going on, but I have to defend that to my teams. Because a leadership role is to be with the company and tell the people how things are, make them happy and work for us. No empathy needed, no cooperation needed, just tell them how it is. I can't really live like that, so I try to explain people what there is. But one of the situation as a head of core was again related to hiring. We were looking for a automation specialist. We've been looking for 6 months. And when I say automation, I mean DevOps/QA automation, CI/CD pipelines, automatic rollbacks, GitHub Actions, all that jazz. And we were looking for that role for a long time. So we finally found a candidate in a location where my normal teams were not present. But we found them, and he was happy. So now imagine yourself as that person who has gone through the whole process, meeting the teams, doing technical interviews and all that jazz. You have gotten your offer, you have agreed, you have even signed the contract. Because right now it's Friday morning. Everything is signed, everything is happy. You know that you're gonna start next Monday in your new job. Your old job is history. I have a full weekend of relaxation, and then I'm gonna start my dream job. And then you get a surprise call from your new employer saying that there's been a slight change of plans. You're gonna join a different team. I can imagine that confusion in that person. What the heck is going on? But okay, I'll give them a chance, let them explain, and I mean, he agreed. Okay, we'll see you on Monday, and we'll see what's going on. Now, imagine you're me in this situation. So head of, I know that my team lead was dealing with hiring. This is Sunday. I got a Slack message from my team lead who found out on Sunday that this has happened. My mood was, let's call it angry, because I hadn't heard anything about this. Nor did the team lead. That one of my hires that's going to come work with me next Monday has been taken away, which is a cross violation of departmental priorities and how people work in a big corporation. This is like, the the prime minister in Estonia coming to tell the mayor of Tallinn how to do stuff in his periphery. This is big no. So obviously I was angry. I set up messages and set up early calls and what the heck is going on? Who came up with this idea? What happened? What happened was that there's been a decision of hiring limit for that location. Because we were becoming, as a company, we were becoming geo-distributed in a big way. Meaning that you have 2 teammates in one location, 3 there, 1 in another, and those lonely people were complaining because, well, they felt lonely. And then it's hard to work if your rest of the team is elsewhere and you can't travel that often. And it's, to learn that there's nobody really working on the same thing close to you. I mean, virtual meetings and all that work, but it's still a bit, hassle. And you scale it up to a company of, 500 developers, it starts adding up, both cost-wise and efficiency-wise. So the decision kind of made sense. That decision was made last Thursday. So somebody made an immediate action. Oh, we see there's a guy starting in a wrong location on Monday. We need to rectify this situation, and we know that another team has been looking for QA who is already present in that location. So we'll just switch this guy to that team, and it's nice, and it kind of makes sense. It's it's going to be fine. And that team got to know about this. They talked to this guy. They gave him the information, and they were like, everybody's kind of like, okay, well, we'll see how it ends up. What I learned though was that that team was not really happy about this, mainly because they had seen that profile in their recruitment pool, because company, we see all the profiles, and they rejected that profile because it didn't fit what they needed, because they were looking for a different kind of tester completely. So now they were saddled with a candidate suddenly. So yes, there was a candidate was confused, the new team was annoyed, my team was angry, I was angry. But what was the result? What? Actually, it was positive. I had to call in a few favors. I did a very calm call, shouting, I managed to get a exception for this case because it was me, and because our area was actually something that it's called a core area, and it was okay for us to be in all locations because we are doing core services, and it has to, everybody connects to us. So I was able to talk my way out of it, but that decision left me a bit crumpled. Like, how can that happen? How can you not think of the situation like that? To some degree it made sense, but on the other hand, not so much. But that was fine. I was part of finding a supplier, a new supplier. We're doing a new project. We need to find a sourcing partner. Me and an architect were leading the task force to find that. We included procurement. We included business strategists to understand what we want to do with this product, where we want to go, which options do we have. What is our target for cost and skills and attitude for this supplier, because it's an outsourced project, therefore our cooperation is really important. We need to have a good cooperation ongoing. So we figured that out. It took us maybe 4 months. We tested thoroughly the companies. We looked at their profiles. We looked at their products. We looked at their costing structure, or how we can make this work. And we made multiple rounds of that, got rid of many of them. So we ended up having basically 3 options. And we went to our CTO and our board and said, well, according to this data, according to our business strategy in this field, the projection, efforts and costs and possible return of investment and all that jazz, option B looks to be the best. Obviously, it's your choice. You might know more because you're bored or whatever, but basically, from all perspectives, this is the best option. So obviously what they did is they went with option A, with basically no clear information why that happened. They just went with option A, which costed 3 times more and was phased out after about 2 years because the attitude wasn't really good. Now, my first idea was that they were being racist, because the option B was an Indian company and option A was a Swedish company. I mean, it's a harsh thing to say, and I couldn't say it out loud. And it turns out it wasn't actually. They even hired part of option B from India to do a part of the project, because that multiple aspects. So there was some sense in it. And majority of the developers for the Swedish company came from Taiwan and Bangladesh and other places as outsourced ones. So luckily, racism wasn't a problem. As I learned later on from trusted sources, I don't know it actually, but trusted sources tell me that the reason was very simple. It's greed. The leader of the Option A company had managed to find a way to talk to our board member or president of the board, or chairman of the board, well, that's the word. Chairman of the board, and made a additional deal about how the financing of all of these solutions and ownership rights of the created products and all of that worked. So therefore they went with option A. So, but I had to explain everybody in my teams who's going to be working with them that we went with the really high cost option that didn't turn out to be going well. So how do I do that? Why does this keep happening? And I mean, obviously we know stupidity is one of those clauses, or greed, but in many cases, oh, I had another slide. One more example before I'll try to sum it up. There was another project I was part of. We were contributing to it with my teams. Again, they had made a really good business case, going to a new market. Going to a new market for us means that we go through not only technical changes to make our product available there, but we also have to talk about the legal side, the regulatory side. We have to talk to the regulatory body, get a license, be certified, have a local partner that operates together with our central operations and manage, all the environments, the infrastructure to make sure that the product works. So it was a very coordinated effort across multiple teams and multiple business streams. It was about 6.5 months of effort on the technical side. The other things, I think, started even earlier with the finding of the partner and so on. And about 2 weeks before go live, the project was stopped with the message of, we are no longer pursuing that market. Message end. My team that was dealing with this project wasn't obviously happy, mainly because 2 of the previous projects they had been working with were also cancelled. So basically, 1.5 years of work has gone down the drain. It hasn't reached a customer. Oh, I mean, as a developer, as a QA, you take pride in what you build, and that's part of the job, obviously. And sometimes business is business. But if it's that long that you don't get to see your stuff there, and you have labored and you have suffered the management annoyances and the communication and the blockage and the dependencies on other teams, and then it's cancelled on the last minute with no information, just say, no, we're not going to do that. Just shelve the project. We'll maybe get back to it in 5 years. And occasionally, this happens because there is a regulatory change or a impending new law that's going to be instated in that country that makes operations there not profitable. Maybe they're going to raise taxes, or maybe they're going to do additional changes to how everything works. Mainly they propose those things when elections are near. So possible laws are being thrown out as something to entice voters, right? But we can't take those risks. Again, from informed sources, I learned later on that we had to stop that project because the partner that the local partner that we're going to be working with and associate us with, we who are publicly listed, responsible company dealing with licensed markets and all that partner did unspeakable things. So we needed to distance ourselves from that reputation as much as possible. Again, a valid business reason, which I learned 6 months later, but at the time for my teams, I was in a really bad spot. How do I explain this? How do I do this? And there's nothing really to do. I mean, yeah, the morale dropped, the waste, everything was there. It looks as if majority of the cases that I've presented, and many you probably have seen yourself, it's mostly related to good intentions gone wrong. We're excluding stupidity and other issues for now, and mostly context. And context that, for our testers, context is king, right? Context is everything. And usually also time, because they're not allowed to share things. Management is not, it doesn't even have time to share everything, even if they might be allowed, because the time problem is that in order to tell you this bit of information, I have to tell you this, and then that, because it's connected with the history of how and what we've been working with, what we are doing, and multiple other decisions, because they don't happen in isolation. It's a really hard thing to say. Yeah, obviously, skills and pride is part of the problem. I think the pride is one of the harshest ones. Going back about what you've promised for managers is really hard, which is why in a different talk I would say that testing is about surprises. We have to manage surprises so our managers wouldn't be surprised about the product or the outcome or what is happening. So they wouldn't have to surprise their managers about the timeline being shifted. But if they knew that this is probably going to be that way, they might not use the strong wording, yep, we can make it by 17th of April. They wouldn't say that. They would say, yeah, early May. And everybody can go along and work with their plans like that. Most of the time. There might be cases where, hey, this sporting event is going to start on 1st of June. Be ready by that time. Cool. But then we'll know that, if that's clear. So it's hard for the managers to talk about the decisions, explain what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, or why they're dropping out of meetings or canceling them 1 minute before. It's not because they don't like you. That might be true. But it's because they've been suddenly called into a meeting with board to explain why this incident took 3 hours longer to solve than it should have been. Or why we're spending 300,000 on a infrastructure cost. By the way, any of you built company in Latin America? Buying a monitor in Estonia, 100 euros, thereabouts. Latin America, 800. You want a Cisco router, 10,000. You want a server rack? Oh, sure, we can do everything. Cost, well, it's a bit high, but no problem. But it's delivery dates. 24 months. Oh, you don't like that? Well, there's really nothing we can do, but I mean, you can talk to Pavlo over here. He might have a solution. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Which is why, in one of our offices, we tell the newcomers to, I'm glad you joined. Now, take 3-hour drive across the border, get your equipment and come back. Because we can't import them, but that will save us about 2,000 euros per infrastructure. Side note, didn't really happen. Numbers and locations are fake. But that's the case. So let's return to the original problem that we had, the case of the firing. This was the Italian market. This was 5 hours of incident and an estimated turnover loss of 8 million euros. And we fired a lot of people. Well, not a lot. We fired 2 and 4 more quit. And this doesn't really make sense, right? To tell you a bit more about the context of this situation, the team involved that got fired was actually a monitoring team who monitor our operations. They suddenly saw that, hey, our site in that market is not working. They set up a crisis call, included the look at the right on-call people, and pretty soon they discovered that this wasn't just our problem. This was for all of our competitors in Italy, because it was the Italian regulator that we all connect to. We have to send them data in real time about what our customers are up to, and that has been difficult. So the problem was on their side. So we were, they connected to the right channels to them and asked for information, what's going on. They got a confirmation, yep, we have a problem, we are fixing it. Obviously, I would have said that in Italian if I could, but those people only want to speak Italian. Their English is, they don't do that. So obviously we said, okay, well, it's their problem. We're gonna wait for further developments. Sometime later, we discover, for our annoyance, that our competitor sites are actually working, and ours isn't. Which made people a bit annoyed. Obviously, we started an investigation. We pulled in the right people again. We found out certification issue in a specific connecting element here, there, which expired, which didn't have a proper alerting on, so we didn't know that this is going to expire at this time. It happened to be in this time frame. For whatever reason, it happened. We generated the new certificate, got it approved, and basically, the infra team sorted it out, and it was fine, apart from the fact that our sites were down 2.5 hours longer than everybody else's. And the reason we figured it out is that when we saw others working, we asked the Italian regulator, hey, how's it going with the problem? Because maybe it works for some and not the others, and they're doing things. And they were, oh no, we fixed it half an hour ago, without letting us know. But, okay, so that was a bit of a problem. But it looks as if it was not the monitoring team's fault. Yes, they maybe should have pinged the Italian team every 2 minutes. Did you fix it yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? How are you doing? Is it done yet? And maybe that could have gotten us sorted this problem slightly earlier, but it still wasn't their problem to fix. So why was that the decision that the company made? And obviously the 4 other team members left because they felt this was injustice done to these 2 junior guys who were on call and handling this situation basically by the book. Another small bit of context. Italian market, obviously it's a locally regulated market. You need to have a license to operate there. Our market share in that country is 20+ million. This is not turnover, this is accounting revenue, quarterly. So the 8 million turnover loss is really not that big of a deal, because turnover for 20 million is, let's say the margin is about 10%. You can calculate that. So what do you need in order for that to happen? So it is a important market for us. Our relations with the Italian regulator were a bit shaky because they are very demanding. Their stuff needs to work for their customers or citizens. And whenever we have issues with them, they're being very pushy and annoyed. And it's hard to get, as I said before, we need to give them real-time data about what our customers are up to, how many deposits they made, game rounds they win, all that jazz. But that also info relies on third parties, because we don't do everything ourselves. We get third parties. hosted stuff that our customers use within our website. So, plus all the different payment methods and how the money moves around. It is a complicated system to make sure that it works. And if you have a lot of players and a lot of active sessions all the time, something will go wrong occasionally. And they were constantly annoyed with us. Also, they wanted us to speak Italian, which at the time we didn't really have a good person to talk to them with. So our relationship was really, really shaky. And you probably understand where this is going. That as a result, our management decided that the reason for this firing is because we need a sacrificial goat. We need to show them that we are taking this incident seriously, that the relevant people are punished, and we are putting strong efforts into fixing this. We also appointed a Sicilian to deal with the Italian afterwards because it's the right, environment, and our relationship is now better. But yeah, goats. Thank you.
So now you know how who makes the stupid decisions. I'm one of those. Questions? It's gonna take long, yeah?
No, not that much. Hey, Kristjan, thanks. What Sicilian organization did you use to solve the problem?
I'll can give you the number afterwards if you want to contact.
Okay, thanks.
How do you know it's Sicilian?
Thank you for the details. What would you advise to us regular folks when we're dealing with managers? What to do, how to protect ourselves, how to see the signs of the goatee growing and stuff like that?
Thank you. Important question. There's no really good one answer. Understanding that managers, especially top-level managers, are constantly pushed from one meeting to another. They're context switching really, really often. That's why they forget what you told them 2 days ago. That's why they don't remember, because most of the time they're dealing with issues which are related to, now we're going to lose that license. We're going to have to spend 50 million instead of 8 million on AWS cost the next 3 years. How are we going to find that money? There's this problem, that problem, third problem going on. So they're actually dealing with generally important issues, presuming that they're reasonable managers and know what they're doing. For them, what you can do is try to understand that and communicate in a way that reminds them what is this issue about. So one of the things I do generally is that when I need a decision made or I need an answer from a manager, I know they're busy. I pester them occasionally, hey, I'm going to come with this topic, but I'm going to send you the details in an email, for example, just for the track record. So I'll give them the short summary, the TLDR version, in the top, saying, I need you to decide about this, option A or B, cost X or Y. And there's the long version where I explain all the other stuff. But that kind of a summary gives them a chance to understand what's this about and answering it at, oh, I can talk to you about this next Tuesday. If I just leave the long email, they don't have the 2 minutes to even look at it when in the middle of a meeting when they see the notification, so they won't respond. So you feel like you're ignored, but they don't have the capacity to even reply. So everything you can do to make it easier for them to analyze or understand what is that you want from them is good. And don't be afraid in going multiple times and don't make the face, you've forgotten again what we just talked about. You can do that when you're in a good terms with them, but be careful on that one. That communication and get a data sorted as much as possible with a clear options what to do. That helps them a lot. In case of this, sacrificial stuff or project stoppages, there's not a much you can do directly because it's really out of your hands. But sometimes they are reasonable people and trust them, that there is a good reason, and you can say that to your team that, hey, there probably was a business reason that we are not allowed to be told. We'll just have to, let's take some money from the team building budget and let's get a few beers and try to forget all about this. I hope I answered your question.
I have a question. Are managers people too?
Crabs are people too, so I guess managers as well. I don't know how many people got that reference. Did anyone? Crabs are people? Nobody. I'm the only one who watches Yorkscast. Horrible. Anyway, managers are people too, and obviously they make mistakes and they have health issues, and their managers are probably pestering them as well, and their work-life balance is horrible. What? Well, the question about lizards running all of the shows is another topic we won't go into. Put on your Illuminati hat, yes. Cool, go ahead.
All right. What is your strategy to deal with those issues, like personally, because they affect you emotionally as well?
They do. That hiring weekend was, or Sunday when I heard about that was not good for my mental health. Distraction, meditation, yoga, weightlifting, doing something else and trying to put it out of your mind is helpful. I'm a competition dancer in the ballroom, so when I go deal with that side of things, everything else goes away from my mind, and I do that 20 hours a week at least, so that helps. Physical activity, getting away from what you're dealing with right now. Obviously those ideas or thoughts come back to you, especially in the night when you've been thinking about something, and it's like, I can't sleep. I do keep my notepad, remarkable, next to my bed, so I just write down the problem that I have, or maybe some thoughts, and for some reason that helps me to think that, okay, I will not forget about that problem or that idea or stuff, and I can focus on sleeping. So that helps.
We have a chance for a few more. So I have a question to the audience. Who wants to be a manager? Raise your hand. You already are. So sounds like we have to give now Kristjan a nice applause. So thank you for a nice speech.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. Last time I was on this stage was when we needed to fill 10 minutes and I asked questions about cutting boards into 5 pieces. That was a very technical testing question, very annoying. It came from what? It was, maybe I can, do we have time I can tell that story?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, good. I was looking for a testing questions and I run into a math question from a Estonian national math exam or championships or whatever. And the question ran as follows. How many corners are left after you cut off one corner from a rectangular board? And I got really intrigued because obviously the answer is 5. But then I got thinking, well, that's not entirely true, right? Some of you might be thinking, well, it might be 3, or it might be 8. Yeah, Kristjan knows this stuff. And I was like, this is a really good question for testers. And I was confused because that questionnaire that I found it in didn't have the answer listed. So, because I forgot to mention, this was the 2nd grade math question. So I was like, how can that be? But I hope they, got any answer that, was able to draw it and point at the corners and say, like, this is how I counted it, that's why that's the answer. Everybody got it right that way. So I've been using that to talk about testing, and because the assumption of how we make the cut influences about the number of corners we have. But it makes it worse because if in reality you cut a piece away, you still have another piece. That's why you got 8, because you got a 5 on the original and then you got a 3 there. But you might get 6 if you diagonally cut it off. And then it got even more tricky because what is a corner? I mean, you take this table, it has a corner here, right? But if you put your finger on it, it's actually rounded. So in essence, it does not have a corner because it's a curve, or it has a million of small corners. So how do you count a corner? What is a corner? So one of the answers a Dutch tester gave me, which was his first answer, was that 2. I hadn't heard that one before. I was a bit surprised. His answer was linguistics based. How many corners are left after you cut it off? So he got off a right side corner, there's still 2 corners on the left. And then the arguments about what is a corner, because that's not defined, gave us to a discussion about, okay, because there is no definition of corner, we have to assume that only the original corners are corners, because whatever we create afterwards with our cutting doesn't really count as corner. So the answer could be 1, because if you cut from diagonally, the only one left is that one corner there. So you can get down to 1. That's the minimum answer we figured out that could be. So we were like, what is maximum? Do you know this one? What is the maximum number of corners you can get? By 1 cut. How many corners are left after you cut off 1 corner from a rectangular board? Yeah, it is. But then you can get a very much different number of answers, right, as well. But let's stay to the 2D. Make it easier. And round, let's say that doesn't count as corners. But if you obviously zigzag, you can get pretty much infinity number of corners. So that question, ladies and gentlemen, is really impossible to answer, and almost all answers are correct. Thank you.